Never did I think in my 44 years of life that I would ever have a walk-up song of George Thorogood's Who Do You Love? But, who do you love? Oop, there we go. This direction. Or possibly, what do you love? What is at the center of your world? I love that we have been going through the book of Revelation and getting to the root of what John really meant. Week 1 left me a little nostalgically crushed, I will say. Clayton asked the question, what's an apocalypse? And I say I was crushed because I read all 16 books, and even a few of the outliers of the Left Behind series. I have to fully admit, at the time, I loved the series. I mean, I was like those people that longed for the Hunger Games books. Do you remember those? The Hunger Games that everybody longed and waited for the next book to come out. That was me with the Left Behind series. In week 2, Donna talked about the 7 churches, and then she threw away a copy of A Thief in the Night. I had never seen it, but after talking to Donna, I'm kind of glad I hadn't. Last week, Clayton brought us a message on who is on the ultimate throne. And he threw away this chart that he made that may bring us pain and sorrow, afraid of this tribulation in the future. So you're probably wondering, and I've actually been asked this morning, what am I going to throw away in the container? Whoop, jumped. So, the End Times Ministries. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but it used to be a program on the radio, and now it's got its own website and all of that stuff. The End Times Ministry was the Reverend Irvin Baxter, and he would speak on what he thought that we might be in our last days. He, along with many other preachers on multiple platforms, would use what I believe to be as scare tactics to gain a following. And I, too, was sucked into that. Hook, line, and sinker. So today, I'm going to throw it away. Now, I'm not throwing away people, just so you know. I'm throwing away the idea of the End Times Ministry. So let's try this out. Here we go. I may or may not have practiced that many, many times. So today, I called the sermon Writers, Trumpets, and Evil. Oh my. I was tasked this week to talk about the chapters on Revelations, chapters 5 through 14. And since Clayton spoke for 21 minutes on one chapter, you guys are in for a lot of fun. These chapters are some of the most quoted chapters when it comes to the end time theories, and perhaps for good reason. When you read through the chapters, it's easy to picture this elaborate image that either can scare you to the core or at the very least be intimidating. Many artistic depictions have been made about these chapters. There is a website that is all about the images of Revelation. I was going to have some of those up on the screen, but I have to admit, I don't want to scare some of the little ones, and maybe even some of the older people in here. I just don't want to bring that fear. Many conspiracy theories are also built on these chapters in Revelation. This book has been talked about a lot throughout our series, and I love the way Jeremy Duncan says what he says about conspiracy theories in the book Upside Down Apocalypse. I'm going to recommend that you pick up this book. It's a great way to see the chapters that John wrote for us in a new light. And I should say, while I would love to talk for many hours about this, about the content in those 9 chapters or 10 chapters, and it's all important stuff, my focus is going to be more on the writers found in chapter 6. So check out the book, and if you need some help getting a hold of it, let me know, and I will get you pointed in the right direction. Jeremy Duncan says about conspiracy theories often flourish because they provide us a simple way to explain a problem without self-reflection. But these chapters don't have to be scary or intimidating. That's not what John's intention was. And it's not what we want to it's not that we want to water these chapters down either. The essence of this scripture is a very important message. The God of everything, the God we serve, the God that loves each of us more and more each day, more than we could ever imagine, wants to show us God's dream of peace. In chapter 6, we meet the four horsemen. Instead of looking at these chapters as a forlorn conclusion of earth as we know it, I want to look at them through a lens of peace and love. So maybe instead of this image, we should maybe make it a little calmer. How about this image? Is that better? In chapter 6, we are introduced to the white horseman. It says he had a bow in hand and was given a crown. He rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. He was charged with conquering the land before him. He was to rule the land by military force. The second horseman, a fiery red one, he was given power to take peace from the earth and to make people kill each other. He was given a large sword. Our third rider is a black horse with scales in hand, is on a black horse with scales in hand. And our fourth horse is a pale one. Death is riding this horse with Hades close in tow. I have to admit, when I read this, I can't help think about the final battle in the end game. Just saying. No pun or analogy intended. It's pretty intense, this scene is. Maybe we could think of the verses that Jill read this morning from chapter 5 as our Iron Man. If you don't get Marvel, just remember, I'm the pastor of youth. This is my job. This is what I have to do. It's our Iron Man. None of this would be possible without Jesus. God's dream of peace is only attainable with Jesus. Jesus is the worthy Lamb. Jesus is the only one worthy to open the scrolls. Jesus is to be given praise and honor and glory and power forever and ever. But I don't think that John had any intention of creating this level of fear for our future. I don't think John intended for us to see it as the end game at all. Actually, if you look at each one of the writers individually and the time period that John was writing in, we might get a glimpse at the peace of God, of the peace that God's dream is. Our first writer of the apocalypse appears to be bent on military dominance. He rides in on a white horse with a bow in hand. He's ready to fight. But why the bow? John is writing in the time of Roman rule. Roman was the powerhouse of all powerhouses. Why wouldn't he have rode in with a spear or possibly a short sword, maybe even a helmet rather than a crown? The bow signifies another type of attack. The Roman army, even with as mighty as it was, had to be constantly looking over their shoulders for attacks from the Parthians. Parthians were notorious for riding in on their horses with a bow in hand and attacking the Romans on the outskirts, on their borders. They would ride in and attack who they could and then quickly ride out. The Romans seemed defenseless to their quick and precise attacks. This incredible Roman army with incredible security on their borders was suddenly left inept to the surgical attack of the Parthians. Do we love our own borders? Do we place our securities in the borders that we make? And who might we be pushing away by the borders that we are creating? I'm not talking about boundaries. Boundaries are for our health, and that would be another sermon altogether. But borders are meant to keep out while keeping us safe. Are we more impressed with our borders than the peace that God desires for his people? Are we so secure in our borders that we forget the security that we have in God? Then another horse came out, a fiery red one. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make peace and to make people kill each other. To him was given a large sword. I'm sure it's no surprise to hear that the Roman Empire was built at the end of a spear. Their peace was predicated on the assurance of allegiance and dominance and obedience. This horseman is a dig to this pseudo-peace. This rider is taking this false Roman peace and removing the spear that holds the peace together, thus unleashing the people to what they have been conditioned to do: harm and kill one another, fight for their very lives. This fake peace is completely contrary to the peace that God dreams for us to have, a peace that is not built on falsehood, not built on allegiance or obedience at the risk of death, a peace that surpasses all understanding, like we are reminded of in Philippians 4:7, or a peace that is found in 2 Corinthians 13:11. Finally, rejoice, aim for restoration, comfort one another, agree with one another, live in peace, and the God of love and peace will be with you. And one more in Ephesians 2:14, for he himself is our peace, who has made us both one and has broken down in his flesh the dividing wall of hostility. This is the peace that God wants for us, not a false peace that is forced upon you. Our third rider is a tricky one to talk about. I looked, and there before me was a black horse. Its rider was holding a pair of scales in his hand. Then I heard what sounded like a voice among the four creatures saying, 2 pounds of wheat for a day's wages, and 6 pounds of barley for a day's wages, and do not damage the oil and the wine. This rider has had to be hard for the Romans to read. It also may be hard for us to hear now. Perhaps it is hitting a little bit too close to home. It sounds on the outside like John might be prophesying a famine, but let's take another look at it. The Roman Empire was also an economic powerhouse, and yet inequality was rampant. The wheat and barley are the staples, the things that we need for survival, but make sure you don't harm our luxuries. Don't damage the oil or the wine. Food costs in the U.S. are skyrocketing, but don't look at the $2.2 billion in profit that Kroger made last year, up 35% from the year previous. Gas prices rose over $1 in the last year, but don't look at ExxonMobil, who made a profit of $11.4 billion in the first quarter of 2023. The inequity is here, and it's nothing new for us now. John was pointing out the same back then. Jeremy Duncan says it beautifully. This image of abundant oil and wine set against unfulfilled basic human needs is meant to unveil the inequity in our prosperity. And if the stability of our society is one economic challenge away from crumbling into chaos, perhaps the empire can't create the security it proposes. Do we think that's true today? Do we put our love in the economic security that we have? I know I do sometimes. Our fourth rider is on a pale horse. The rider's name is Death, and with his buddy Hades close by. This is the culmination of the riders. John was pointing out the frailty in the people of the Roman Empire and the need for them to understand that Rome could not solidly protect their borders or ensure them of true peace or guarantee wealth or even financial security. Death will inevitably come, but where do we find our protection? Where do we find our peace? Where do we find our security? In God alone do we find all of this and more. So let's get a little deeper into our current state and see where our love lies. Not necessarily you, but the society that we live in. Imagine this with me. Imagine a world where we didn't spend $886 billion on defense and use some of that money for the 38,000 veterans who are homeless in the United States. Imagine a world where we didn't have 1 in 18 people making less than $6,300 a year, while the average CEO of an S&P 500 company makes an average of $18.3 million. Imagine a world where we all feel safe, no matter who we are, what we look like, what we are wearing, no matter what. Imagine that world. I'm sorry, I'm crying already because I'm going to, I'm going to do this. That peace that God longs for us to have, but we must be active in that peace. And we don't have all the answers. I can tell you that you need to volunteer more or spread the wealth. I can tell you that you need to fight for what is right and to write to your politicians to possibly get things fixed. But I surely do not have all the answers. And you'll know why I'm crying here in a second. Sorry. On this side of heaven, I don't think anyone truly knows. I shouldn't have done this, Ames. I shouldn't have done this. This week, I had to say goodbye to one of the best men I've known. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry. My assistant chief, Bruce Nethercutt, passed away this week. He had a love for the fire service and EMS. He was incredibly intelligent. He was an amazing human being. And we got to honor him. Can somebody get me a Kleenex? I'm going to get one. Thanks, dude. We got to honor him this week at his funeral. We were dressed to the nines. We wore our Class A's. We were spiffy, definitely. And we honored him in a way that was incredibly awesome. And then he had the goal, before he died, to record something. He recorded something that they showed I say he had the gall in a joking manner. It was awesome. He recorded something, and in his recording, he told a story of his dad. His dad was a man that would do anything for anybody. He would make sure that if you needed help with something, he would make sure that you got the help that you needed. If you broke down on the side of the road, he would definitely help you out. And Bruce talked about this man as being his role model, just like Leah was saying, his role model. And what will forever stick with me is what Bruce said, and this is how I'm going to end today. Bruce said in his video that we have to be there for each other. It doesn't matter, he was talking to the fire service and all the things that we see, but I want to leave you guys with that. The best thing that we can do is to be there for each other. That's how we can show God's love. That's how we can show the peace that God has in store for us. Who do you love?